So the German Synod yesterday, they went ahead and basically, apostatized the faith. Very, very interesting. In the German Synod, one of the things that they said, the only thing that's holding us back as a church is tradition. Those strange things that St. Paul used to say in the Bible, and so about, kingdom of heaven and what you needed to do to get into the kingdom of heaven. That's that tradition. Get rid of it. We're the new church. But another thing that happened yesterday, people seem to have forgotten. You've had the biggest bank failure since 2008 in America, Silicon Valley Bank. Little minor thing, biggest bank failure since 2008. Not going to affect anybody in the system. Banks are not connected. People seem to forget now when the banks open, when the stock market opens next Monday, the day after tomorrow, you're going to see the banks in free fall. You're going to see lending, all the more tightened up to Silicon Valley stock market, all of these companies, the Metas, the Twitters, Silicon Valley companies. You're going to see tens of thousands of people unemployed over the next 3 months as the ripple effect of tightening of capital in the markets in America, which will flow into Europe and other countries. People aren't, we're in the middle of a war, a proxy war in Ukraine, where we've spent, 160 billion funding arms, to kill 150,000 Russians, and the Russians have killed the same amount of Ukrainians. It's close to approaching 300,000 deaths alone in Ukraine. Because this is a proxy war between NATO and Russia. It's a proxy war between the West, Russia, and China, because let's not forget that China is supporting Russia. There's no other way around it. You have deals now by Chinese companies to make drones for Russia. I know they've cut off all of the Russian media, but if you read it, you'll see what's going on. There's the narrative on both sides. So the biggest bank failure that the world has seen since 2008, on Friday, Silicon Valley Bank. People are not able to get their funds out of that bank. It's got into administration. It's been taken over. We'll see how they manage to maneuver themselves out of this. But it's a complete shake-up of American banking again. And American banking influences a lot of things. If you can't get capital for your startup, if you're not allowed capital, you're going to see a lot of businesses, especially small venture capital businesses. You're going to see a lot of businesses going under. I wouldn't be surprised if Twitter actually goes under at some stage, unless Elon Musk is able to shore it up with more capital. So, look at all of what's happening at this moment in time. We have German bishops rushing themselves, to fulfill the prophecies of Garabandal and Akita. They're outdoing themselves. It's very, very sad. A lot of bishops abstained yesterday. If the German bishops who had abstained actually voted against, this motion would not have passed. So you have, a whole generation of German bishops who do not have faith, who cannot preach and teach or know the deposit of the faith. Catholicism is a way, it's a way to the kingdom of Christ, and it's a way of conforming our lives to the truth, which sometimes is not easy. And I think it's very, very sad to see the leaders and the church destroying the faith in so many ways. It'll make the church irrelevant. It'll just make it another Pentecostal Protestant church in Germany, and we'll see how long they last. So we have, a lot of things happening at the one time. We have the Pope going to Hungary again. I think this is his second visit, if I'm not mistaken. We have the Pope going to Hungary, which is a very, very important visit, probably one of the most important visits of his pontificate. And probably from Hungary, who knows, he will go to Moscow. That's my view. Hungary has interesting relationships with Russia. And I think the Pope is going to leverage those relationships as to try and spark dialogue on getting a peace deal for this war. Whether he succeeds or not, who knows? But the Pope will go to Russia after he goes to Budapest. And these are just my thoughts on this. We're in for a very rocky year. We're in for a very rocky year. Anything to do with the financial markets in America will just overflow very, very, very quickly. I mean, watch bank shares tumble on Monday. If you have stock in bank shares, watch the biggest sell-off since 2008 on Monday. The ripple effects all across the world on bank shares on Monday, pushing further pressure on the West and Europe, which has high inflation. Because quantitative easing when you have high inflation isn't the best thing to be doing. So you're going to have a financial system that's under incredible stress. You're going to have banks restricting lending. And when you have restrictions on capital, then you face banks, companies going under, and companies have been under pressure for a long time. They have the COVID, they've been under pressure during COVID, they've been under pressure because of high inflation. There's a company near here that makes butter, artisanal butter, and because of the increases in energy prices, they've gone under, they've stopped selling. It simply is, all of these small businesses under pressure with costs, labor costs, inflation, they go under because banks are starting to restrict lending, and this is going to cause tens of thousands, if not millions of people unemployed over the next couple of months. And it all starts, remember 2008, what did it start with? Bank collapse, bank failure, pressure on the money markets. So, watch this space, what's going on in the world today. The different things, the different things that are all connected. You have West that's funding a war, funding arms into Ukraine. If we hadn't given 160 billion to Ukraine, they would have been forced to do a peace deal. And you would have saved tens of thousands of lives. Might seem unpalatable, but us Irish, we had to learn to live with our biggest neighbour. You had to do peace. You can have conflicts for decades, but at the end of the day, you have to sit down and do a peace deal. And President Zelensky, who grew up with his first language being Russian, he is a Russian, that was his native language, he has to sit down and safeguard the lives of those fighting in his country. He has to do a peace deal, which seems unpalatable to many people. But the alternative is what? Another year, tens of billions of more arms, tens of thousands of more lives dead. Very, very sad situation, not easy. So, just pray for this situation, but you're going to face a very rocky, a very, very tumultuous number of months ahead, years ahead. The catalyst is starting when you have bank collapses. This is the biggest bank collapse since 2008. When you have bank collapses, you're going to have a lot of collateral damage. You're going to face unemployment akin to 2008. You're going to face stock markets tumbling as people restrict their spending. It's going to kick off upstream. All the businesses that rely on our spending are going to start feeling the pressure as people get nervous and stop spending because of what has happened. So, not surprised all this is all happening at the same time. We were kind of warned it was coming. I didn't think it was going to be that drastic. I didn't think we would see bishops against bishops like Our Lady said in Akish. I didn't think we would see less and less and less importance given to the Eucharist. We've seen the synodal document in Germany. No mention of the Eucharist though. Lord. Devotions, rosary, prayer. Get rid of that. All the traditional stuff that the Catholics used to priest. We don't need that. We're more enlightened. They have excelled. Germans have outdone themselves in wokeness. It's a strange time in the church. So it's a strange time in the world. But, we've been warned. We've been warned. And things are going to get a lot worse. Because that's what Our Lady has said. And we're looking at these things now. We've been warned. You can't say, and it's time to prepare. Prepare your families, prepare those around you. Not in a spirit of fear, but in a spirit of, look, get ready for what's coming, guys. It is what it is. Look at what's happening in the world. If the West doesn't seem to care about escalating a war up in Ukraine. The West doesn't seem to care about the 150,000 Ukrainians that have been slaughtered. They don't care. Here's some more arms so you can go off yourselves and get yourselves killed with the Russians. You might say, well, what is the alternative, Robert? The alternative, what Ukraine can do, is do what Georgia did: negotiate a peace deal. This is what Russia did in Ukraine, they did in Georgia. And then once you've negotiated that deal, you defend it. You defend it by fortifying your country, by fortifying your army, by building alliances. But they knew this was coming. The Ukrainians knew this was coming for many years, and they've, stuck their heads in the sand. They've stuck their heads in the sand. They refused to realize the 8 million Russians. Remember, Ukraine had the largest Russian-speaking population in the world. This is what people forget about the war in Ukraine. You have a country with the largest Russian-speaking population in the world, and then you don't want to do a peace process with 8 million people. I mean, we saw this in Ireland. We saw this in Ireland with 20 years, and it took a peace deal, a peace process to work our way out of this. And the West doesn't seem to want to allow Ukraine even do what Ireland did. But interesting times. Pray for what's going on. Pray for what's coming. These things are going to happen. These events are all connected. When you see banks collapsing, when you see wars escalating, when you see bishops committing heresy, outright heresy, walking away from the basic truths of the faith, you know what's coming. Our Lady was telling us the truth. Our Lady in Akita Garabandal, Fatima, Akita Garabandal, Medjugorje. Very interesting. All the traditionalists that are against Medjugorje and so forth. You go to Medjugorje, you're going to find Medjugorje has been calling out this craziness that we see in the German church and the Irish church. Medjugorje has been calling it out. When the Irish synodal document came out, it wasn't Knock that was calling out the craziness in the Irish church. It was Medjugorje. And Catholics going to Medjugorje are listening to the priests in Medjugorje calling us out for having departed from the faith, from the Irish church having departed from the faith. So it's interesting times. Thank God for Medjugorje. Thank God for the brave priests who know, love and live the faith. And it's crazy times. So be prepared. Don't be afraid. Non abbiate paura, as John Paul II used to say. Don't be afraid, but be prepared. God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.